How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Good to see you.
You too. Do you use headphones or no?
I don't generally, but you feel free if you want to. It's completely up to you. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
No, this is good then.
Okay,
Make sure they, yeah, okay, that's good.
fantastic. How have things been over the last couple of weeks? How did everything go with your son and so on? Was that all okay?
It was all okay. It was a little bit difficult for a couple weeks, but he's on the mend.
Good, good, fantastic. Well, I'm pleased to hear that. It's always good. So okay, so I'm going to trim all the bits off of the front and so on before we get going, but I'm just going to kind of lay this out for you. What we're going to mostly look at today is as I said, a sort of an open formish conversation, but what I'm interested to kind of go into is what is probably around this what you're doing, which is the future of what we're expecting masculinity and its role in society to be. I think that's where I'm feeling that the best kind of line of where we're going to go is, and the the way that I'm going to frame this this episode is there's been this big push against masculinity and this attempt to erase it and certainly and certainly keep it down and remove it a lot from society, and we saw what the results of that were, and there's now this sort of sense that we're moving back away from that now. There's definitely a much bigger feeling that I'm getting from people that I'm seeing and so on that's moving us back the opposite direction now. So that's really where I'm looking to get us started. So does that all sound right to you? Does that sound like a good way to go?
Yeah.
Excellent,
Sure.
fantastic. Well, so let's start off by going into a little bit about you. Give me your background. Tell me how you started doing what you're doing now. Introduce yourself to everybody, and just tell me how you became a masculinity coach. How did Jennifer become a masculinity coach?
Yeah, so it's definitely a long story, and I will make it as quick as possible.
Problem.
So I lived my life as a toxic people pleaser. I made terrible decisions. I didn't have an identity. I had no self-value or self-worth. I don't know why this is the case. I have great parents. Possibly one was an over coddler and one was very strict, so that could have something to do with it. But I have great parents. They've been married for 56 years.
Yeah.
But in any case, I became a toxic people pleaser, and so I made really terrible business decisions, personal relationship decisions, and I was also this also carried over into my parenting when I did have children, which is not good. So I eventually reached a rock bottom. This was about 6 years ago. I was in a relationship. Now, mind you, I've already been divorced twice, and feeling kind of disappointed in myself. I always had good intentions. I would also call myself a hopeless romantic people pleaser.
Yeah. I think they go hand in hand to some degree, don't they? Your desire to please other people can actually make you more likely to accept things you wouldn't want to accept otherwise.
Exactly. And so because of that, I ignored red flags. I was a very, very poor picker. I always gave everybody the benefit of the doubt. Even if I did see red flags, I would justify them or make them my fault, or try to reframe that narrative in my mind to make it okay. Just not good. But at any rate, I ended up in this relationship. I had moved my entire family to another state to be with this person, which was a bad idea. Even my parents, I got them a house in this other state too.
Okay.
And once I moved there, physical abuse started happening. Verbal abuse became more prevalent. My son was getting verbally abused. I have a special needs little boy. He was very little at the time. I have two daughters also, two teenage daughters. And I was also $1 million in the hole because of some con activity sort of that he had sprung upon me.
Yeah.
And so one day he hit my son in the head. Now, I didn't see this happen, but two other people did, including my son, who has special needs, and he doesn't make anything up. And so I took that as my wake-up call, my chance to leave.
Yes.
And I planned that day so my middle child, or my oldest child, had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class that evening, and I had already packed the car with all of my things, and I was planning on leaving to where I'd moved my parents to. And so I did. I left, and I never went back. There was a very, very big lawsuit involved afterwards because we had combined business. Luckily I didn't marry the person, but we had combined business, and it was actually way worse than a divorce.
But they do say that getting rid of a business partner is more difficult than getting a divorce. I think that's right.
Yeah, it was really, really difficult. But I did it, and I immediately changed. I committed to changing my life the next day. So I got a therapist. I started the process of selling my parents' house and selling the house that I had purchased with this person, so I could get out of that state and back to Texas where I belong. And I actually accomplished that within a month, which is pretty surprising. Moved us out of my parents' house, purchased us two houses back in Dallas. But I got myself a therapist. I got myself a life coach, a business mentor, all kinds of things. I got deeper into the Word of God, which really saved me. I was always very close to God, but I didn't have a really in-depth relationship that could get me through hard things. It was more like a surface level relationship. And I think along this process, I really met the Holy Spirit, which I think was the one part of that Trinity that was lacking in my life, which really does give you that self-value and self-worth and that identity that I never had before. And so as I progressed in this transformation, I got to know myself, my beliefs, my values, myself as an individual, as a parent, and just as a person in society. I really started to fall in love with my own authenticity, which was a beautiful thing. And I started caring almost not at all about what other people thought of me. I had no desire to be a people pleaser ever again, which is hard as an empath because I am still very empathic. So it's hard to kind of draw that line between empathy and people pleasing sometimes. But nevertheless, I think I did well with that. And I started writing pieces that I would put out on social media. This was before I ever became a coach. Those pieces became pretty inspirational, although they were more therapeutic for me, kind of like public accountability for my poor decision making and the lessons I've learned along the way. And eventually that turned into people telling me, oh, you should be a coach. And so I started that process. I initially wanted to work with women who were like me. So kind of high performing, driven women who are also stuck in people pleasing life situation. And for whatever reason that didn't work. And I think God was kind of calling me to get down to where I am now. I started working with one man. He was my first male client. And this was again before I got into masculinity and my passion for that. And that coaching situation was brilliant and beautiful. And that person is still living his best life 4 years later, which I'm very, very happy to know. And that kind of, I guess, boosted my confidence and my belief in myself that I could actually help people. And so that is when I kind of got on this trip of, well, what is real masculinity? How have I suffered from a lack of masculinity? How have especially my two teen daughters who were not raised by a father, how have they been affected by a lack of masculinity? How has society taken away masculinity and made it something that is shameful in our life? Like, like even in sitcoms, masculinity, the men are just totally made fun of and are stupid and Like it's not respectful at all.
No.
Men are, so I started to realize that you know, men are the backbone of society. Men are the foundation of families, communities, marriages, all, even in divorced situations, men, like the father is definitely equally as important as the mother.
Yeah.
There are things that I'm a single mom, obviously, and there are things that a father can do that I simply cannot do.
Yeah.
And I will always say that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then biblically, as I got further into my relationship with God, biblically, that kind of definition, biblical definition of masculinity and femininity, because they go together, became really important to me. And I just became super passionate about that polarity in relationship and men being the best versions of themselves, but in that masculinity in which they were created to be.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
That's great. Thank you. And I know we're going to get into some more stuff, some more specifics and so on as we go, but that was really good. And I, you know, when we talked, obviously, before we set this all up, you know, we you know, it was clear that your journey and mine are not a million miles different, in that I was someone that I hadn't bought the lie of masculinity being a problem, but I had not developed myself into a man who was a leader. I was relatively good at leading myself, but that was about it. But I still made bad decisions. I still ended up with the wrong kind of people, and I was in a particularly toxic relationship for a long time. That really, I did a similar thing that you mentioned. I ignored a major red flag really early on. That looking back now, I wonder why I did that. Like, you know, I know that if that same thing happened to me now, if I wasn't married and I started dating someone new and that happened, you know, 2 months into seeing somebody and that had happened, I would just immediately cut the cord. I just, well, that's the end of that. You know, that we're not going to bother with that. But for some reason, I stayed with that person for almost 6 years. And it just got worse as it went on, as these things always do.
They always do.
Yeah, they never get better, do they? And so when I came through that and came out of that initially I was somebody that had come out of it and thought, I had a slight victim mentality about it. I had a slight, why did that have to happen to me? kind of attitude about it. But I very quickly got a different perspective on it, which was I allowed that to happen to myself. Why did I allow that to happen to myself? And it's because I wasn't taking the lead with myself properly, let alone with other people. And it just happened to luckily coincide that very shortly after leaving this person, I met the woman who is now my wife. I met her about 3 months after I broke up with this person, with no actual intention to do so. I hadn't gone out thinking, well, I've left her, I'm going to go find someone to marry. I had actually got out, and I was actually in the thinking that I was probably going to be single for a couple of years. I sort of thought, I won't worry about relationships or whatever. I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing. I'll keep on building my business. I'll keep doing what I'm doing there. And if I meet someone, I meet someone. That's kind of how I was thinking about it. And then, lo and behold, three months later, I met the woman who's now my wife, and that happened really quickly. It was one of those very instantaneous situations of I just knew.
That's beautiful.
I have to give a lot of credit to my wife as well, in that she was someone that empowered me to be the leader in our family.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
That's really important to find to have in a wife or a partner. Like it's crucial. Yeah.
Because the other person was someone that can continue to undermine that. And I think that a lot of men do get in that situation, and a lot of women find themselves doing that. Now, I'm not going to attribute necessarily massive amounts of blame. Some people are just following things that they've they've been told is the way to think, and it isn't necessarily right. And some people are just genuinely quite toxic people. It's just the there's both ends of the spectrum. But yes, the problem with a lot of relationships that I see is that there isn't a clearly defined leader in a relationship, and then when there isn't a clearly defined leader in that relationship, it tends to go the wrong way. And if the woman is the leader in the relationship, ultimately she doesn't actually respect the man in the relationship with her. And so that never translates into a long-term successful healthy relationship either. And I think that's where the importance of what you're doing is really matters now, because as you touched on, there's been a cultural push for probably at least the last 15 to 20 years to emasculate men, to remove the leadership role from men in both in family and society and in all facets of life, and and it's been driven by the very aggressive third wave feminism kind of thing, which is ultimately, it's a bit like socialism. It's about loving the poor, it's about hating the rich. And it's the same thing with femininity, with feminism. It's not about loving women, it's about hating men. And that causes the obviously the problem. You eventually get to a point where you just become opposite enemies, and you can't reconcile, which isn't healthy for anybody.
No.
And I think you touched on it very well about the cultural thing. You watch even sitcoms, even quite a lot of serious films. You get it all. You get this sense that there's this push to try to make it that the women can do all the things that the men can do, in fact just as well, if not better. And that's not true. And it's equally not true the opposite way around.
Exactly.
Women are better at some things and men are better at others. And men are better at being focused on particular elements of life, and women are better at focused on other particular elements of life. And there's a reason there's those differences there.
But there are reasons that there are two genders.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason for there being two genders. There's a reason that there were traditional gender roles that were understood for millenniums.
Yes, and they worked well.
Yeah,
they worked well.
They worked well. They built the civilization we live in now. So I'd like to ask. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was going to say, just to your point, I think this has been happening longer than 15, 20 years, like you said. I think it really started with feminism. Feminism had a good idea to bring more equality to women, right? But ultimately it's destroyed women. It's destroyed men as well, but it's also destroyed women. We have become very masculine, defensive people who think we are hyper independent and don't need anybody, and we can be the rulers of our family, which like you said, doesn't work. In a relationship there has to be that polarity, and even if the female thinks has these good intentions and things this can be good, we can have an equal relationship and I can be just as much the leader as he can be, she will eventually lose attraction to that man very quickly. You don't think it, but you will not be attracted to that person anymore. It just doesn't, there's a reason that, again, polarity has to exist in a relationship.
Yes, but I think I've watched and listened and read quite a lot around this sort of subject, and I think ultimately what it actually is, and you can see it on a macro level, it's a lot more difficult to identify it on a micro level, but ultimately women are attracted to power. And so very powerful men get a lot of women who are attracted to them. But within your own household, the man has to be the person with the power, or the woman isn't attracted to him.
Exactly.
That's how it really kind of fits on a micro level versus the macro level. It's the same thing. You need to have that dynamic, I think. What's been your experience of working with men who don't have that?
Yeah. So my typical client is more of that middle-aged person. So it's not necessarily the person in their 20s who is starting a relationship and should be having those conversations with his potential partner in his dating life, because I think that's really important for young people to have those conversations. Once you determine what kind of relationship you want, like it's really, really important for you to have those awkward conversations early on that nobody wants to have, but you have to, or you're going to end up screwed up, and you're going to end up at like my actual clients who have a lot of the time been in 20-year marriages, and they realize 20 years in that the wife doesn't respect him. There's no connection whatsoever. And he has completely lost his sense of leadership within the marriage and over the children. Because eventually, when the woman keeps pushing and pushing to maintain that sense of control, the man like automatically becomes passive. And just gives up. Like you hear about these men just giving up, like, and
they check out.
And I will say like that this terrible phrase, happy wife, happy life, is like the biggest BS ever. It like that kind of mentality, I think, yes, your wife should be happy. Yes, absolutely. But to do things just to appease her is not the way any marriage should be handled. And, you know, to your point about power, yes, women are attracted to power. Women want to look up to the person they are with, even if they are doing really well in their professional lives. Like they want to come home and look up to him, because that is what it is attractive. So that power. So then you have to define what is power. And I think sometimes, I mean, people have different ideas of power. Some people think power is purely status, wealth, material possessions, the ability to like influence a lot of people. And I think those are all important. But I think you also have to include healthy love and strength in there. You have to be able to include some amount of emotional intelligence in order for that to work too, because without that compassion and love element in power, then it just becomes dominance, and nobody wants that either.
Yes, exactly. And I think that you know, it kind of where it's what you're talking about there as well is the leadership element, the ability to make decisions is a big part of that that dynamic. A woman doesn't want a man who can't make a decision. You know, because again, that's an element of leadership, that's an element of power, your ability to make a decision and go with it, even if sometimes those decisions don't turn out to be the best ones. The fact of the matter is you made it and you committed to it and you did it. That's what matters almost more than anything else. Obviously if every one of those decisions ends up, you know, going from one disaster to the next, that creates a different thing, because what that's doing is that's undermining power with lack of competence. Because competence is part of power.
Yes, that is one of the masculine traits that I talk about. Competence is really important. And you have that whole competence confidence loop as well, which really, like, as your confidence grows, your competence grows, and vice versa, right? It goes in a never-ending loop. And I think that's very important. And a woman can tell if confidence in a man is fake, egotistical, cocky, toxic, that toxic male type of confidence, or if it's real confidence. She can tell. Just like you can tell, to your point about decision making. Picture two dating situations. One they're trying to figure out where they're going to go. Where would you like to go? Oh, I don't know. Where would you like to go? Like this is like one of the first dates, right? Or you have the man who says, wear a black dress, I'll pick you up at 7:00, our reservations at 7:30 at this place. Like that. There's a huge difference between those two men. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that before as well. With some women who will say, "I don't like a man telling me what we're doing," and it's like, yes, but you don't respect the man who doesn't tell you what you're doing. So what do you want? because again, you know, if they're the one making all the decisions all the time, they very quickly realize they're not actually interested in the man they're with, and so that's where that's how it all kind of fits together, I feel. And I think what I have noticed in recent times is that there's definitely a societal pushback against the cultural evisceration of men. There is definitely a movement back away from that what you could call toxic femininity of forcing that on people.
Yeah.
And especially in the place that I live in now, and because obviously we're both in Texas, which is a good place to be. Especially where I'm living now, I'm in the sort of outskirts area of Fort Worth, and it's very traditional in the area. Most people are in traditional marriages. Most people are going to church. Most people have got a good relationship with God, with each other, and so on. It is not perfect. There's plenty of people who don't. It was quite funny, actually. I was getting my my haircut at the barber's the other week, and the guy in the barber's is, I would say, he's late 50s, and he was explaining to me that he was single, and he was telling me in his very thick Texas accent, which was very funny, like, this is a terrible place to be single. He said, there's nobody my age who's single. he said everybody's been married 15 years by the time they're my age, at least, if not 20, 25. And he said there's no one single my age in the area at all, almost. And it's, I think that tells you something about the culture of the area that you're in.
I agree with you. And I know that as being a single person in the Dallas area myself, there are still a lot of single people, because again, people are on these 20-year marriages, and so many people are getting divorced right now. So there are actually a ton of single 40s and 50-year-old 40 and 50-year-old people, I think, all over the world, like more so than ever before. Obviously more in the United States than any other country in the world, because we have a 56% divorce rate. But
absolutely, yes. And I think it tends to be a larger issue in the more metropolitan areas as well. Is if you're in a more rural area, you tend to get less of that than you do in a city. It seems to be a combination of I think it is most likely, if I had to be just thinking off the top of my head here, I think it's probably closely career related. Because a lot of the people who live in big metropolitan areas like Dallas and so on, they're very focused, they're very career focused, very career driven people. Both of them probably have got careers. The woman's got her own thing, she's focusing on her own career, her own things, and so on. And so the man isn't really taking a leadership, because all he's doing is going and working as well. And then they're coming back together at the end of the day, and that they're just and that's it. And there's an off balance power dynamic or anything like that within the marriage. And I think it tends to be exacerbated in those areas. I can speak to the same problem in the London area where I was beforehand. The people who lived in London, the divorce rate's higher. There's a lot more people coming out of cities, and a lot more people who are professionals, as you would call it, who are divorced at 40 or 50. And I do think there is an element of that career driven problem in there.
I agree with you.
And would you say that is more problematic on the feminine end than the masculine end?
That what exactly is more prominent?
I mean, the decision to drive career over family.
Yeah, I think so. I think all men primarily want there to be a family, there to be a mom who nurtures the kids, and he goes and he's like the hunter provider, I definitely think it's more feminine driven. And I think that's one of the, let's give it some credit and say unintended consequences of feminism, is that it's given a lot of people, especially women, the desire to go and pursue a career. Quite often then they're earning good money, they get up into their 30s and they realize that they've got to have children because they're going to run out of time if they don't. But they don't actually want to give up the life and the money and everything that's giving them to do that. And that then causes problems at that point, because now they've got to find a man who
not only makes more money than they do because they want to be with someone that, again, that's got that different power dynamic, but women tend to go across and up the social and socioeconomic spectrum, and men tend to go across and down. And so when a woman is very high earning and very high achieving, it dramatically reduces the pool of men that she can actually pick from as a result. And I'm not necessarily saying that women shouldn't want to have any success in their lives. I don't think that's what I'm trying to say. But I do think that the pursuing of the career definitely puts family secondary.
It does. And I don't agree that families should be secondary. Like, even though I don't have any regrets, because I don't believe in regrets, if only I could go back and do my life all over again, I would do every single thing would be different.
Yeah, a lot of things would be different. I mean, I have a similar look back at myself, and I always say, if I had the opportunity to go back now, knowing what I know now, yes, my life would be different now. But at the same time, I look at it as, yes, but I probably wouldn't have the people in my life I have now.
True.
If I went back to 18 and started from that point, now I probably wouldn't be married to my wife now. I wouldn't have my daughter. I wouldn't have the things that I have now that I take for that I am thankful for every single day. And I think I'm not someone that believes necessarily in fate or that it's God's plan for you specifically. But I do believe that your own experience creates the person that you are. And so the desire to go back and change it is a bit of a fantasy, but ultimately it wouldn't necessarily work out any better.
I don't think so. And I agree with you, definitely. But I do think that, as a Christian, I believe that even though we have our own free will, God already knows every choice we will ever make. And so he has created us knowing that we have these choices.
Yeah.
And among those choices, we will be led into struggles and all of these different things that then we can have the opportunity to either learn from, share wisdom from, and ultimately choose the purpose that he created us to have. And then, act on that. Now, I would say not a lot of people actually find and choose that right purpose, but I think that's like the whole point. I think that's the point of our life.
Yes, it's finding what your purpose really is. I think that's the ultimate call of life and of God is to do the thing that you should be doing on the earth, and that can be something that's very hard to find sometimes, and it certainly was something that was difficult for me to find, and I think I'm still finding it. I think everybody is. Even I look at people who have. I always envy slightly, and I know envy is a sin, but I do envy slightly the people who have clearly found their purpose early on, and are doing something hugely positive and impactful, and are making the lives of other people, significantly better. And they found a way to do that. I look at those people and I do envy them sometimes because I think it must be nice to have found that so early and to have known that so early on.
It is. But at the same time, at least the whole point is to find it, whether you find it, like I always talk about Abraham from the Bible. He didn't find out his purpose until he was in his 70s. Yeah. And then he look what he became. Pretty amazing. And so I think as long as you find it, and also to your point, like it does evolve. Like even if you do find it in your 20s, it will evolve forever. And turn into different things. Along with that same kind of base that it started from.
Yes.
So I think that's a goal too, is even when you do find your purpose, keep evolving it.
Yes. No, nothing can stay the same forever. Everything changes, everything evolves, everything grows. And so long as you are growing something in a positive direction, you're making progress. That's the way to look at it, in my humble opinion, as they say. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you particularly with regard to the societal changes we're seeing at the moment in the masculine space, and there's been a rise recently in what's being referred to online as the manosphere, which I must admit I find a very difficult term to get my head around, but I get I get what it's talking about. Where do you see the future of masculinity going, and the changes that are happening there, and the way people's attitudes are changing towards it?
Yeah. So first of all, I think I definitely see the changes occurring too. And I think, they say that there are cycles in play. Like if you even think about how, like the falling of Rome, it kind of happened in the same way, except that they just didn't come back.
Yeah.
But they were experiencing the exact same things that we have been experiencing for the past many years, which is, they didn't have transgender surgery back then, but they were dressing as women, and there were a lot of, things happening that have been happening that eventually it just doesn't feel right to people anymore. Like this has gone too far. And so, for instance, with the whole transgender stuff, I think that's what kind of kicked it to the curb. I think ultimately is when children are getting this surgery, and in some states, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in California, like they could start this process of hormone blockers without their parents' consent. And just, like, literally ruin their life.
I do know that Minnesota has put itself up as a sanctuary state, and they would actually take children from parents and do it to the children without the parents' consent or knowledge, which is mind-blowingly crazy. And I think that's exactly. I think you're right on that point, in that I too have looked at the sort of parallels between what was happening in Rome and what's happening now, because and they are very, very similar, and what it ultimately does is it degrades your society. It degrades the identity of your society. And we could go down the rabbit hole of how intentional that is, and the people who are trying to make that happen, versus the people who are just doing it because they've drunk the Kool-Aid, as it were, and aren't actually, don't really understand what they're doing. They don't really understand they are the agents of evil. They don't really know that that's what's going on, but they are, but they're pushing those ideas anyway.
I heard something really interesting today by Simon Sinek, posted on my Instagram story. It was so good, but he was explaining that, like, when it comes to, like, political debates and, like, all these different things happening, you have to remember that, in order for, like, violence not to happen between people, you have to remember that each side is coming from a place of, this is what I believe in and this is good. Like, both sides truly believe that they are good, and the other side is coming from evil. So if you think about it in those terms, like, if this person that you don't agree with thinks that they're coming from a really good place, like, it really does help you maybe seek to understand better and not be so judgmental. Now, with that being said, I think our current political system is helping us make this change from this degradation of society into something that's more like what the United States was founded on. Not just the United States, though. I think it's happening all over the world. There's a pushback everywhere, and I but there is still a sense, for me at least, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that thinks it, but there is still a sense from my perspective that there are forces behind a lot of it which are genuinely evil and are genuinely trying to create disaster, and genuinely trying to push the world into an evil place. Well, it's the devil. Like, I am of the belief, I think, and I think I just kind of realized this recently. I don't think there are actual evil people. I think there are forces of evil that the enemy puts on people. Because, you know, the enemy distracts us in the most small ways, and he plays on your individual, you know, things that would distract you, or things that would get you to question things or doubt things, or
your weaknesses.
and then it,
yeah,
and then it just like rabbit holes into disaster. Like that's the whole point of the enemy, right? And so I think that is what happens. And I think like if some of these people who are pushing, like for instance, this mutilation of children, let's just keep on that for a second. Like I think if these people were actually to take a step back, like look at it from a higher viewpoint, like they would think to themselves, what am I doing? What do I actually, like, this is insane. And I think we're so involved in our own ways, we just typically don't take that step back and look to see like what we're doing and how we're actually ruining society, and especially ruining the next generation children's lives.
What would you say as an overall statement to men, to what they can do to improve the direction of society and make sure that it's getting better? Because I do feel like the pendulum is swinging, but that needs to be accelerated slightly, but also controlled. So what would you say to sort of men watching and listening about what they can be doing?
So I think being more vocal and in their convictions is really important. I would say one of the things that have been, I'm not giving you a one statement like you asked. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right. It doesn't need to be one statement. It can be an entire set of things. So please go on.
I think that one of the things that we have seen from Charlie Kirk's assassination, that doesn't necessarily have to do with Charlie Kirk, is that we have this revival of not only Christianity, but also this revival of being able to talk about things that we believe in, and like that as a wake-up call of, okay, this is my chance to help make an impact in making the world the right type of place again. And I think even if you're not a Christian, I don't think anybody could argue with the fact that if you live a life aligned with biblical principles and push that out into your family and your community and your children, the world will 100% be a better place. And so, like I said, like even if you don't believe in God, even if you're not a Christian, those principles will make everything better. And having another thing about men that women are attracted to and that make things happen is that men are supposed to have a mission and a vision and direction they provide to the people who look up to them in order to carry that out. So they have a mission, they have a vision, and they know how to guide, whether it's a school system or a political system or a family or whatnot, or even just themselves, to guide themselves to that vision and be so, like I said, convicted in what they want and what they see and what is right. I think that's really important. But I think that men need to be more bold while showing strength and love, and because you can't forget the love and the compassion part. You can't forget that. Because like I said, if you don't have that element of in your leadership, you will turn into a dominant, control hungry tyrant. Like that could actually happen.
Yes. And I think there's it's an interesting dichotomy you talk about there, because men need to be leaders. Men are driven to be leaders, and they are driven to a purpose and a cause and so on. And men only really want a few things in return for that. We're pretty simple creatures in that way. As a man, we want three things in our from our relationship, in our life, and our wife, our family, and so on. And especially from a woman, we want respect, we want peace, and when it comes to our wives and partners, we want sex. Those are the three things that men are after. That's pretty much all we really want. And so long as a man is feeling like he's getting those three things, he's going to be pretty happy in his relationship and in his life and what's happening and what he's achieving. I think the problem is that some men find it very difficult to accept a particular thing, which I heard, I think it may have been Jordan Peterson who was talking about it originally, or it may have been somebody else on one of his podcasts I was listening to, but they were saying that one of the issues that young men have especially is that it's very rarely articulated to them, and it certainly wasn't articulated to me, that as a man you have to prove your value. Whereas women don't have to prove their value. Women have got an intrinsic value, where women are effectively born with their value. They have that intrinsic value to them. As a man, you have to prove it. And the only way you can prove it is by developing competence, so that you can develop yourself a vision and a leadership and a way that you can provide value to others.
Exactly.
And if you don't ever develop that as a man, or if you've got into your 20s, your 30s, or whatever, and you haven't developed that, the world starts abandoning you, and that can make you very bitter. And then you get bitter men who then take that out on the world around them, and they will take it out on the women that they end up in their lives with. They may take it out on their children. They may take it out on other people. They may decide to, take it out on themselves and go through transition surgery, and then go and get a gun and try and shoot a load of people. And that's the extreme end of it. But it happens, and it's because of that lack of being able to lock in some kind of understanding of that's what you have to do as a man.
You're so right. And I think that's why, like, children, the generation of children that we have right now, it's a crucial time, because we have so much of that evil force is still so prevalent, with those kind of extreme left ideas. But then also we have, more of the middle and the right ideas too, which I think that's how families thrive, and that's how children thrive, and that's how those principles are developed in men. And I think it's really important as parents to raise our kids in that fashion. Now the school systems don't help, especially in other states like California, or like you said, Minnesota. And so again, I think, it's just really crucial that we are, I think at the end of the day, I think both women and men need to be more vocal about these traditional principles. Like, there's a reason that those traditional principles exist. It's from the very beginning of the Bible, all throughout society. It's what our country was founded on. Why would it make sense to change that? It doesn't work. It leads to destruction.
Well, all you've got to do is look at every society that's ever gone that way and see what happens. It's not even like there's no empirical evidence to back up what happens if you go down that route. It reminded me when you were talking earlier about how people go out into the world and where they start and so on. It reminds me of the quote from the film The Hobbit, when Gandalf's talking and he says, some believe it's only great power that can hold evil in check. But that's not what I found. It's the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. And I think that's a really powerful thing for people to understand. Is it you may feel that as an individual you don't have the power to change the world, but you do.
You absolutely do. And like you said, it is in those everyday moments. Like, so a lot of the clients that I work with, we talk a lot about the big picture type things, but we also focus on, daily routines and non-negotiables and daily intentions of, like, what am I trying, like, what can I, if you have an overall goal, what can I do on a daily basis every single day, non-negotiable, that will get me there. That will prove who I am, to the world. you
Yes.
know?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I found personally, I mean, I've had a couple of coaches, and I've done, I did a small amount of therapy before and so on. And I found that, talking about my problems doesn't help. And I think that's a thing that a lot of men fall into the trap of. They fall into the trap of, oh, therapy is something you've got to go and do. And then what they do is they go to someone and they talk about their problems all the time. And for men, that doesn't help. I've not met very many men who have talked about their problems and got better. Most men who achieve something and improve themselves, they instead look at what they can do going forward.
Yes.
What is the place you want to be, and how do you start moving yourself there?
Action.
Yeah, you will crash your car all the time if you drive around looking in the rearview mirror.
Exactly.
You will never get where you want to get to. You have to look ahead of you, and you have to build yourself in the direction of where you want to go. And I think, I'd be really interested to understand. Let's imagine a scenario where a man has come to you, and let's take an average guy who's 45, been married for 20 years, suddenly realized he's in this situation you described, been married for 20 years, wife doesn't respect him, doesn't get any real respect and anything in the home, knows that he needs to have some sort of purpose, hasn't got one. Where do you start? Where do you actually start by speaking to that man?
So initially we start by really, really deeply assessing everything in his life right now.
Okay.
That is of course, his marriage, but every single aspect, professionally, financially, physically, spiritually, other relationships, every single thing, mental and emotional, every single thing. We assess it deeply. It takes a long time. And then we determine what the next level is, as far as like where he can take his life. This is apart from the marriage, but we do talk about the marriage at this point too. What would the right marriage be? This is like we imagine a very greedy but realistic version of what the next level of all of these things could be.
If you could have everything you imagine, what would it look like, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then I do the same thing with masculine traits. So traits, for instance, like leadership, strength and courage, protection and provision, love, faith, growth, all of these things, including competence, which we've touched on. We do the same thing. Current situation, how can we take these traits and level them up in actually like ways specific to your life, not Bob's down the street. But as far as a marriage is concerned, what I found works. Okay, let me backtrack. Doing those things can help us figure out where their purpose might be.
Yeah.
What they've gone through in their life that has provided them with something that they can then turn into an impact, right? But then as their marriage, as they kind of get, okay, men love a mission, like I said.
Yep.
So men love to chase something. So chasing these new visions is something that, it gives that dopamine hit. It gives you something to achieve. Like men thrive on achievement and chasing that and like getting something.
Yep.
So that helps the confidence level already. But then and then hopefully at that point within the marriage, they can then develop a sort of declaration to their wife. So this has worked with a ton of my guys who have been in that position, disconnected, no respect, no purpose. The woman is the leader. After some work on himself, he then goes to her with this declaration of sorts where he kind of takes back control of the family. And this is through vulnerability, but also vulnerability backed by vision and mission.
Yeah.
So it plays on what women like to hear, but also it is direction. There's a foundation of direction and vision, and here's where I'm taking us. And this is where we're going. It's not like, I think we should do this, right? Like it's very firm and bold.
Yeah.
Like, this is where we're going. This is where, like, this is it. Like so he provides a direction, he provides a vision, and he starts doing these things, and his consistency over time gets her back to a place of respect. And this has worked in so many of the men I've worked with. And they have, like, their wives start having sex with them again. They have better conversations. They start respecting him. Like he feels better because he's getting that respect, and it kind of goes back to the way it was supposed to be. Which in some cases it used to be at the beginning of their relationship.
And then so, it broke down.
Yeah, and then the women kind of like inherently realize that, oh, I've actually been really exhausted. I've not been attracted to him, and now I can be, and I can just be in my feminine energy and just relax, because I've been on both ends of that spectrum of being in my masculine energy, being hyper independent. Like kind of the first 2 years I was going through my own transformation, I became super hyper independent. Like I don't need anybody. Like I can do this life all by myself. But it eventually, like, it wears you out. And you realize that, okay, I'm not living the way I was created to be. And this just is not sustainable. So that's what I would say. But that kind of declaration and direction that, like, because again, women want direction, women want decision making, women want power in their man. And that's attractive if he can take that back.
And I think as you rightly point out, it's retaking that control as the first sort of first major step that starts to either, I suppose, it either brings things back on track, or it blows the whole thing up. That's I suppose it does one of those two things.
Yeah, and unfortunately that does happen sometimes.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some women who just won't accept that happening, but you know, it's a bit of like the ripping up of the band-aid in some ways, isn't it? It's what, you know, you kind of got to do it, or you spend the rest of your life, you know, living this same way.
Exactly. That's what I tell people. Like, okay, because again, people become so passive and complacent. They think, especially men, okay, I'm just gonna be miserable forever and just like live in this kind of dynamic. Like, okay, that's not the way to go. You need to either go here or here. But you need to do something to make it go one of those ways. And hopefully it will go here. Like, because I don't think divorce is ever a good option unless it's like there's something dangerous happening. Like, because you can make something work with almost anybody. But like you don't want to leave it here. You want it to go somewhere. You need to create some movement, and but I think you know, to that point that you just mentioned there, I think that is right. A lot of men are prepared to just deal with it being not good for the rest of their lives. They are, you know, they're quite, you know, they're. I know I was resigned to that situation for a while in a similar thing. I was just like, oh, I guess this is what it's going to be, and that's, you know, it's only when you take ownership that you realize that that isn't acceptable. And I think but it's easy to fall into, and again, men are kind of built to be providers, even if they're not rewarded for it. That's true.
Even if they're not being given any gratitude for it, even if they're not being given really anything in return, they're built to just go and keep doing it. That's just what they do.
It's really sad, because I mean, I know several people who are major CEOs, super intelligent, super successful, and they are in these types of marriages. Like, why? Run your marriage like a business and take control of it, right? If you're so good at business, run your marriage the same, but with a little sprinkles of compassion and love in there and intimacy. Like, that stuff will come back to play. You have to take charge.
You would think so, and that's a very good point. You know, that take charge, and I've learned, and I think we touched on this before, that taking charge of every facet of your life improves every facet of your life. You know, I've taken charge of my relationship. I've taken charge of my business. I've taken charge of where I live. I moved my whole family, you know, 5,000 miles or whatever it was to make sure that we were in a better place for us to be as a family. I have taken charge of my health, my fitness, and the more that you take charge of those things, the more confident you become, and the more
Absolutely.
competent you become, as you were talking about, the competence confidence loop, which is
Yep.
entirely true. And that delivers back to you results.
Yeah.
You get the results back based upon doing that. And I've noticed it in the last few months. We've only kind of had boots on the ground here for about 2 months here in the US since we moved here. And in the last 2 months, I think I've made almost as much money as I did in the previous 8.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
And that's just
because you've taken charge.
Yeah, because I've taken charge of it, and I've just and again, I'm the kind of person that just goes, we're doing that, and I go and do it. But because I go and do it, it kind of creates the energy in yourself that there's no safety net.
Yeah.
So you've got to make it work.
You have to.
Yeah, you've jumped off the cliff, fly.
Yeah. Yeah, you have. Yeah, once you jump off the cliff, you have to make it work, or you die.
That's it.
It reminds me of Jordan Peterson quote that is my favorite quote of his that I heard when I went to see him in one of his lectures. He said, and so I don't know if it's ever been said publicly, but I wrote it down in the moment because I loved it so much. He said, "Responsibility abdicated leads to tyranny." So if you don't take charge of every single area of your life, something else will, whether it's the enemy or somebody else down the street, like something will take charge if you don't.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yes, it is. And it can literally be if, like, let's say you just don't take charge of your diet. What takes charge of your diet is whatever you're putting in your body. So if you're just eating takeaways and junk food and everything all the time, that's what's actually taking charge of your diet, not you.
Yeah.
And so it's sugar and processed fats and all this stuff that makes you unhealthy is taking charge of that area of life, because you're not taking charge of it. It's not even necessarily a person or an evil force or something that takes over. Some instances it is, but it can literally just be the thing that you're not looking after is therefore in charge.
Yeah. And then, so that's when you need to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And in that situation, like be disciplined, go through your pantry and throw out every single thing that you could be tempted with.
Yeah.
And then don't ever shop for it again.
Yes.
Like you could just do, like, people also make diets, if you want to stay on that topic for a second, way too complicated by counting macros and calories and all these things. Like, I don't do that. I don't even weigh myself ever. As long as I can fit into the same size, I'm good.
You're good.
I don't count calories. I just work out every day, and I try to eat clean. I eat clean, nothing processed. And I eat more protein on my plate than other stuff. So that's like literally all I do.
That's
but people need to simplify those areas of life. People make them too complicated.
Oh, they absolutely do. And and I think there's an element of the control thing that comes in there as well. Someone's trying to take control of it, and so they want to dig into every single individual detail of every single thing and then get more and more and more. I think they can turn into their own little obsessions in some ways, and you want to avoid that. I'm somebody that's I probably have, because the one that I started following was the carnivore diet, and the reason I focused on that was a couple of reasons. But first and foremost, it was I just preferred it. I've always preferred eating meat anyway, and I'm like, why do I have to eat this pile of vegetables on my plate that I don't really enjoy eating? And then when you look into a lot of the stuff behind the carnivore diet, like, you don't even need to be eating these. They're really giving you almost nothing as far as nutrition goes. So why am I bothering? And so I started doing that. Now I probably have about an 80% carnivore diet. 15 to 20% is other stuff. And I'm not somebody that's completely zealoted about it. And I'm more than happy to have myself a piece of cake or a pastry here and there and things like that. That's fine. And I think so long as you're not allowing it to make you miserable as well, you're okay. But I've noticed the health improvements that makes, and there's a lot of people who talk about the carnivore diet being really healthy for you. I personally think there's two things that happen there. One is that, yes, you're taking on a lot better protein, a lot more processable fats and solubles and things like that you can get into your diet. But I do think the other thing that probably has a big effect that people don't necessarily realize is that one of the things you do with a carnivore diet is you eliminate everything else. So all the stuff that's got seed oils in it and processed fats and processed sugars and stuff in it, that's all gone out of your diet, and that's why you feel a hell of a lot better as well, because you're not putting all the stuff in that's no good for you anymore.
And it also, like, there's also, which I think a lot of people, it's not like part of Western medicine that gets advertised, and which is kind of weird for me to say because my dad was a physician. He's very, very Western medicine, even in his Alzheimer's years. Like, he thinks he's still a doctor sometimes, and it just the stuff that it's pretty crazy. But I think when you have a carnivore diet, like if you have cancer, for instance, like cancer thrives on sugar, which is any carb, including the carby vegetables, right? If you eliminate all that stuff, cancer has nothing to survive on. Like it eats carbs. Like
exactly.
That should be pushed out more often.
You would think so, yes. And I think again with people like RFK and being involved now, where there's a lot more focus on those kind of those real health things about your body as a system, like anything else. And I've done a small series and a couple of talks on a thing I call the entrepreneurial diet, which is not just about the food that you consume, it's about everything you consume. Your diet is everything that goes in. Every TV episode that you watch, every movie you watch, every book that you read, the people you spend time around, everything is your diet. It's all inputs into your system, and the nutritional value of that system input is what you get as a system output.
So I love that. I love that term. I want to talk about that.
Feel free. You can have that. That's what it is. It's you're an input output system. What you're putting in is what you're getting out. And so if you're exercising well and you're eating well and you're running a business well, but then your wife hates you and is talking to you like you're a useless piece of crap every time you speak to each other. You've got no friends you can talk to about anything. You're watching terrible reality TV all the time and things like that. Guess what? You're not actually going to feel that good most of the time. Even if you're doing some good things, because your system overall input output is not more positively swung one way or the other. It's not that you have to have every single thing coming in being absolutely perfect, because that's virtually impossible to achieve anyway. But so long as you are keeping yourself as best as possible on the positive end of that spectrum, you will see the results.
Absolutely. You could say the same thing about alcohol. Like I mean, I love a glass of red wine, but every single drink that you have is poison. And you feel it. Like even if you don't feel like if you don't drink to have a buzz or anything, it still tarnishes your body. And you feel it. You feel it in the way it affects your work. You feel it in the way it affects how you speak. Like life is better without stuff.
I've noticed the older I get, if I drink, I sleep really badly now.
Yes, because your heart rate rises, like and your heart rate variability goes down. It does all kinds of things.
Exactly. And again, I'm not somebody that refuses to drink anything. I'm quite happy to have a drink from time to time. I've never been a big drinker. I've never been somebody that can drink every night of the week. I've never had the system that could deal with that. But some people do. So the most generally I will drink is, I'll share a bottle of wine with my wife one night a week. That's probably the most we ever tend to drink. And we usually do that on a Saturday night, because Sunday is a fairly chilled out day. We go to church in the morning, we have breakfast, and then we go home and chill out. And so we don't have to do too much on those days. So as a result, we can afford to do that on that one night a week. Now, I couldn't do it on a Tuesday night before a big meeting on a Wednesday. I wouldn't do it. Because it would make it much more difficult for me to actually focus and be my best self on that following day.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So we're coming towards the end of the time, and I would more than happy to keep you for longer, but I know we've got to let you go. So thank you so much for coming on. The final thing I want to ask you here is, when it comes to masculinity as an entire concept, where do you see the future of it? Where do you see the future of it going over the course of the next couple of decades?
I think it's going to head back into the more traditional concept of masculinity. I think it's helped by, like I said, the current political team that we have in America, and the influence that all of those people have on the world.
Yep.
I think that was maybe like the catalyst, if you will. But I think ultimately, like, people have realized that things are not right the way they have been. And so I do think that this will become something that is more traditional going forward, with femininity also.
Yeah.
Femininity and masculinity and all of the things that go along with those concepts. Do I think it will eventually turn the other way again, as it does? Yes, but hopefully that won't be for another couple hundred years, maybe. Maybe I'm too hopeful by saying that, but I think people realize that this is the right way to be, and this is what keeps us going and growing and evolving as a society.
Yeah.
And that all the other ways that we have been living are wrong and detrimental to the society. I think try to be more vocal about it. Like, everybody should be more bold. Like, for instance, Charlie Kirk was. Everybody doesn't agree with everything he says, but he was very bold, very convicted, and that's what we all should be. Absolutely.
And to be honest, he never said anything that deserved for him to meet the fate that he met. And I think anyone who's honest and listens to anything that he's ever said would agree. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you so much for joining me, Jennifer. Real pleasure. Thank you.
This was a great conversation.
On the email that I sent you, you give me your address so I can send you the Map to the Future mug. It's your guest souvenir that I will say.
That is awesome.
I will get sent across to you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Definitely. This was so great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, so what I'll do from here, I'm going to do some editing. It'll be next week. I'll edit it up and I'll get the episode ready to go live. And once it's gone live, I'll send you the link to it, so you can feel free to do whatever, share it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so I can make like short clips and stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be some short clips I'm going to make as well, and so on. And once those are all done as well, so the first thing I'll do is get the full episode live, and then I'll send out some short clips and stuff as well, so you can again use those however you want to. And am
I allowed to make my own as well?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, feel free.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. Would you prefer for me to send you the sort of the edited up file so you can just use that, or do you want me to send you the unedited full video?
It doesn't matter. You can send me whatever is easier, because I'll just put it into Opus Clips and make short clips.
No problem. Okay, that's fine. Well, I mean, once I've edited it up, I'll send you the raw version as well, so you've got that to play with, and I'll get it up on the online as well, and we'll get it pushed out. And yeah, it's been fantastic. Really a pleasure. And one day, because we don't live that far apart, we'll have to get a coffee, or maybe you can come round and we can make dinner for you or something. You can meet my wife, you can meet the kids, and so on. Something like that. Be we'll do that at some stage or something. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, have a good week. Have a good weekend too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.